the Pro Series podcast. This is episode 144, and today's guest is Ernesto Mandowsky. He is the founder and CEO of the Million Dollar Machine. He helps companies scale to grow. Growing companies struggle in scaling. He helps design a system to increase the revenue and profits and have peace of mind in your business. We talk all about that, some common things that he finds in clients and issues that other business owners have, and some quick fixes. But before we get into this episode, please like, subscribe, and review the Pro Series on wherever you listen to podcasts. And now I hope you enjoy episode 144 with Ernesto Mandowsky. Ernesto, thank you so much for hopping on the Pro Series podcast today. Excited to talk to you about your business, your book, and so much more.
Thank you, Eric, for having me. Excited to be here with all the pros that have been on before.
Absolutely. I always like to talk about how I got you on and who kind of introduced you to you. And James kind of sent me over your bio of your website and your book, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect for the viewers, because a lot of these viewers are small business owners trying to drive more sales or grow their company, and they just don't know what to do, and they're just very confused. It seems like it's very hard to find a coach out there or anybody to help them out. I feel like a lot of people think it's competition wise, but I'm just excited to hear from you and hear about what your book's about, your website, everything. But I want to first hop into you introducing how you got into where you are right now. Was it always something you wanted to do when you were younger, or did you kind of just hop into it as like a passion project?
Well, when I was younger, I wanted to get into restaurants.
Okay.
So on the surface, it seems very different from what I do today. Um, but if there's anything that I learned is that small businesses are just like restaurants. The owners, restaurant owners, the business owners, they're wearing all the hats, they're doing all the
Mhm.
things, and their main responsibility is to deliver an amazing meal experience for their customers. Sometimes that meal is interior design services. Sometimes it's delivering a website. Sometimes it is building a house. But every time it needs to be a five-star experience.
Yeah.
So after spending 10 years in restaurants, startups, world of high growth technology companies, I said, you know what, it's time to start working for myself. And so I launched my company. And now I've been doing this for 3.5 years now, helping small business owners create the infrastructure so that they could grow without losing their minds,
Oh,
quite
absolutely.
frankly.
So these companies, they're struggling, they reach out to you for coaching. How does that work?
Sometimes people know this service as fractional COO,
Okay.
but companies, they sometimes don't even realize they're struggling. They know they
Mm.
want to grow. They want to 2x in size, and they don't know how to, or they don't know
Mm-hmm.
what to do, or they don't even realize um, they say they want to grow, but they're afraid of it because their Google Drive is a dumpster fire and they
Mm.
can't find anything. And so they're so stressed all day looking for information. How could they even grow? It's just going to add more anxiety to their
Mm-hmm.
plate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that know something's not working, but they don't know what it is. It kind of reminds me of that TV show Bar Rescue, when they go in
Mm-hmm.
and they have the guy
Mm-hmm.
come in and kind of analyze the company and
Mm-hmm.
figure out what is wrong with it. And is that basically what you're doing?
Yeah, we find out what's wrong through just a series of questions,
Oh,
a
okay.
series of questions, or maybe not necessarily what's wrong with it. The right wrong paradox sometimes triggers some shame and anxiety. I don't like to use the right wrong, but you just ask them, hey, if you doubled your client count, what would happen? And
Do
we
you
take the conversation from there.
Yeah, do you think along the years of me working and seeing all these small companies, and they want growth, but they're just not built for growth, or their mindset is not, or how they are working is just not meant for growth. Is that what you're seeing a lot of it in
Oh
these small
yeah,
companies? Okay.
yeah. How they're working is it's just not designed for the next era of the
Yeah.
business.
What's your advice for them to upscale that? I know it's probably a loaded question because sometimes it could be a production standpoint or, finance standpoint, but what is it usually that is missing that they're kind of missing there to grow?
Well, people think what got you here will get you there.
Oh, yeah.
And just going back to that question, hey, if you doubled in size, what would that look like? You have to ask the hard questions like, can you still fulfill the service in the same way that you were doing it before?
Hmm.
And usually the client has all the answers inside of them, but they rarely take the time to slow down, answer those questions.
Yeah. And I feel like when you're dealing with most business owners, obviously they're very proud of their company. They don't want to hear the negative sides of the company. So do you struggle with that side of it too, kind of analyzing the company and figuring out, well, this is what you thought and what got you here is not going to help you for the next 10 years.
But usually people who already come to me have come through a referral.
Gotcha.
And so I come with that sense of trust already with that, that stamp of approval that, hey, Ernesto knows what he's talking about. And you may want to listen to what he has to say. So people aren't often, you know, outright resisting what I'm
Hmm.
saying, or they're not like combative to what I'm saying.
Okay.
The more common situation is they don't prioritize the work that we start doing because maybe they
Mm.
don't fully grasp the implications of it.
Okay. And then is that when you kind of break it down and make it into like a step-by-step goal process, or how do you go about that?
Well, every one of my experiences when I work with clients, I break things down so that they can just take the next step uh, towards their progress.
Hmm.
The main thing when we first start working together, I invite clients into this whole operating system that I call the six pillar system. And that, adopting that new way of being, I've broken it down into 30 lessons that people can take at their own pace. Well, not at their own, a suggested pace.
Yeah.
And I do what I need to do to check in with them and make sure that they are creating the commitment to make it happen versus
Hmm.
like me telling them they need to do something.
Okay. I mean, that helps out a lot. I think a lot of the times you tell them what the end result is or what they need to work towards, but they don't know how to get there. They don't know all those steps between to get there, and that's probably the strongest. Or I think that would probably be the hardest thing on my end to figure out. You see the goal and you see what you want in your life, but you don't actually know how to get there.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So for the most part, is your client, is it really anybody in a entrepreneurship world? Is it mostly restaurants? Is it really anybody?
It's not really restaurants.
Okay.
It's primarily service-based businesses.
Gotcha.
So like marketing agencies, coaches, trainers, consultants. I do have a couple of tech startups that are groups of 15 plus employees
Hmm.
working together. Um, I do believe everyone in every industry needs operations, but I am primarily focusing on the ones that are in their third to fifth year of business and are committed to building seven figures.
Hmm. This is a question I ask a lot of my guests. For some reason, I've been getting guests over the past so many years, not consciously. It's just randomly. All my guests have worked for a company and then they've kind of segued it out. And there was always this pushing point, one where, well, this was the breaking point for me to jump off and make my own leap into my own company. What was that leap? And was there even a downside, or did you just kind of one day wake up and like, hey, I want to work for myself?
Yeah, no, I worked at Deloitte, which is a big company, and I always wanted to go into restaurants, and so I eventually did make that pivot into that world. And in restaurants and in startups, and before taking Leap, I was in a big family-owned restaurant group. I always had freedom in my role. I had autonomy. I was able to work at my own pace. And when we got acquired by a huge restaurant group, and I was my schedule, like I basically became a cog in the wheel. I was not enjoying that.
Mm.
Was not enjoying, where like every morning by X o'clock, I had to submit this report, I had to check in, I had to do the call. It was just like turned into this rote, boring routine. And I said, no, this is a sign. It's time to go.
Yeah. So what was that first step getting into this business? How did you get your first client?
Oof. Well, are you familiar with Notion by chance?
No.
So Notion is a software. It's like Asana, it's like Monday, it's like
Oh, okay. I know
Trello,
Monday. Yeah.
like one of those tools. So I basically learned Notion from an influencer on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And my first client was, I basically found my best friend and I was like, hey, I have this amazing tool. It's going to help you create alignment between your goals and your projects and your tasks and people in your network. I'm going to help you connect the dots across everything. Are you down? And he was like, yeah, sure. And we like kind of practiced with him. And then I got a second client, and then I got a third client, and then I got a startup, one person startup. And then it kind of just kept going from there.
Mm. It's funny how just asking a question gets you to where you want to be. I feel like there's so many people that are listening that send me questions in. I do a second episode a week called Off Topic where I kind of just answer questions on my side of this, like my opinion on it. And a lot of people ask, how do you get these guests on, or how do you get certain people in your life? And I just say, just ask. The worst thing they could do is say no.
Yep,
And
exactly.
if you didn't ask, you maybe you wouldn't even had your company.
Yeah. Yeah, asking good questions is a great strategy or approach. You always want to ask questions instead of making demands or telling people things. Asking questions is always a safe bet.
Yeah, no one wants to be told what to do.
Yeah.
So when did this whole book and being an author come into play?
I had been writing while I was in restaurants. While I was in restaurants, while I had a the book is called Newbie,
Okay.
and it's this idea that no matter what you're doing in life, no one's done it before. So, embrace that beginner's mind. Like, we're all newbies doing something totally unique, totally new, totally different. And another way of defining the title, because it's spelled Newbee, is that we are inspired by bees, how bees make honey.
Hmm.
So when bees, they go to different flowers, they extract nectar, they transfer the pollen, the flowers make new flowers, and then the bees go back to the hive to create honey. And so we are doing the same thing. We are creating this unique intersection of skills, insights, experiences, and we're offering it back to the world in the form of a job, product, a service, a podcast, an event, an experience. And really, it's our job to just create that super rich and unique honey,
Hmm.
and also embrace the fact that it's never been done before. So there's going to be a lot of failure. There's going to be a lot of confusion, anxiety, but you just got to keep doing it anyways,
Hmm.
because that's where the magic lies.
Yeah, I love that because there's a quote, and I'm not gonna try to say it because I know I'm gonna butcher it. I saved it on my Instagram, but it was something about how no one lives the same life. So even if someone is being in that same situation as you in your same career or whatever, and they tell you what steps to take, it's not necessarily going to work for you because it's your life. You have different experiences. And that's perfect for what you just said about the newbie thing. Like everybody has their own life. It's all uniquely to you. So it's a perfect title for that. I love that.
Thank you.
So the book, it sounds like you've been wanting to do forever. Was that something that you wanted to do even when you were little? Because it sounds like you were writing for a long time ago.
No, I felt tremendous pain when I first left Deloitte and went into at Deloitte or at any of these big companies. There's like massive training programs, massive
Mm,
learning platforms. If you wanted to do anything, they probably had a course for it. And when I got to the restaurants, no one taught me about how to set up the inventory system. No one taught me how you drive change management in a 15 unit restaurant group. No one taught me anything. And Uber Eats wasn't around and Toast wasn't around. None of these restaurant tech companies were out there. So whenever I would kind of share this passion or this area of work that I was doing, people would look at me like I was crazy. So I said, there's a massive wave coming, massive innovation. It's going to totally revolutionize restaurants. This was 2012. And I said, I'm going to write the book because there's going to be hundreds of people coming after me that are going to be the next analysts of the restaurant industry. And I started writing and I started writing and I started writing my experiences. And eventually, I even pivoted the project. It became less about restaurant tech and more just about my life and about this concept of cross pollinating your experiences and bringing them together to create that unique product.
Hmm.
So that whole journey was about 5 years.
Okay. Is this your only book that you're gonna write, or are you gonna write another one?
I've I'm in the process of
Oh,
mapping my
okay.
next book.
Awesome. Is it
Very excited.
another self-help type of helping out someone else type of book, or what are you going, what direction are you going in this one?
It's a business book.
Okay.
It's gonna help. It's basically taking my methodology so that you could give it to a small business owner and they could start learning about the 6 pillars and how it can help them generate power, personal power,
Hmm.
which then radiates into their business, which then radiates out into the world.
I love that. There's so many people out there that get to a certain level of success and they don't want to share how they got there or what they've learned along the way, and they just want everybody to kind of learn on their own. But I feel like that's such a we should be caring about other people and helping them out and get if you learn something and you could help someone save a couple steps, why not help them out?
Oh, totally. Totally. Or it's that, or like you read uh, Steve Jobs' book was great. I'm sure Elon Musk's is great. They're like 900 pages, but sometimes pick up these books. It's like Thomas Edison, and it's like a 100 page book, and they can't give you all the details. They can't give
No.
you like the juice. And so imagine like if you could have these books with the juice of how to do things,
Yeah.
you really help someone go 10x in just 1 hour of reading.
Have you gotten to that point where people come up to you and say, this book has helped me with whatever in their business or whatever?
No, because my book was more like motivational, inspiration. The book
Gotcha.
that I wrote is great for a kid in high school or a college kid.
Okay.
Not necessarily for someone like you or I to like advance in business. It's it's been more of like a memoir.
Well, it could also help them figure out what they want to do in life and motivate them.
It could, yeah. People say they're inspired. They say it's a good book. It's a great book. It's fun,
That's awesome.
fast read.
Yeah. So I don't know if we actually mentioned your company's name and where people could find you.
Yeah. Well, the company name's called the $1 Million Machine, and people could find me at themilliondollarmachine.com. Or they could shoot me a DM on Instagram, Ernesto Mandowsky. And if people go to that site, they can take a quick 5 question quiz, which basically breaks down like where they're at today in business and where they want to go in terms of their revenue, number of discovery calls, average revenue per customer. It helps like break down the numbers to get a rich, in-depth understanding of where you're at.
Okay. If you could, I want to have you end with a question. What, if you had any advice to give someone who is jumping off that corporate grind or whatever that company they're working for, and they are going in to make their own company, what would be the couple pieces of advice you'd give them? And maybe something you see missing from a lot of these clients that you are meeting with daily.
Yeah, I think there's this story that people think like, oh, I'll get systems when I get bigger.
Mm,
Like, I don't need a system until I am X. X, they don't ever really define X. And I think it's the biggest pile of shit out there. I think people people need to get organized from the get-go. There's a reason why investors give startups just enough money to survive for 3 months. They want them to focus on just that 3 month goal. So people can create a system for creating a goal for 3 months and then executing it flawlessly in 3 months. That means task
hmm.
management, that means relationship management. Doesn't need to be fancy, but get started with something. Start with any version of the system.
Even if it's just a one person business.
Even if it's just a one person business, you're ideally, I think if you're a one person business, you're probably reaching out to 50 to 100 people in your network
Mm,
to find that first client. And you need to start keeping relationships with all these people. So if
Yeah.
you're using your inbox or your messages app as like that tracker, you are setting yourself up for a lot of anxiety down the road.
So do you think if someone is trying and they're listening to this and they're trying to start up a company, would it be more beneficial to start with you before they start the company and pick up those strategies and everything beforehand?
I'm not going to say there's a right or a wrong time.
Okay.
People can start wherever they're at. Um, looks different for everyone.
Hmm.
But if they do go to my website and fill out that scorecard, they're going to get a direct email from me with like where they're currently at,
Hmm.
and maybe the number is all zeros. But if the number is all zeros and they want to get to 50K, I give people personal recommendations on what I think they need. So I reward those who take action. So if the person is passionate and willing to put in the work, then happy to share my magic with them.
Absolutely. Well, Ernesto, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. I want to finish off on where people could follow you, buy your book, and just be able to reach out to you.
Well, people can go to our website, themilliondollarmachine.com. As I mentioned, just fill out that application. It'll have my email, and after they fill that out, we'll share my Instagram and any other places where people can find my contact.
Awesome. And I'll have the website link in the podcast description and the social media description for everybody to easily click on.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, Ernesto, thank you again for taking your time out of your day to come on the podcast. Can't wait to get this one out and everybody listen.
Thank you, Eric.